All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to all of our guests and to those that are joining us virtually for our September caucus meeting. I'd like to take a moment and thank all of our teachers and staff, our students, parents, and guardians for a great start to the school year. Please watch the calendar as there is a tremendous amount of events coming forward and upcoming through September and October. Hard to believe we're talking about the onsets of fall already. But our back-to-school nights have been going. I know tomorrow night is middle school, followed by Thursday, I believe, is high school, and lots of events happening. So it's a great time to walk the buildings, meet the students, teachers, and staff. Thanks to, as well, to Mrs. Matash, Ms. Snyder, Mrs. Giselle, Mr. Shepler, Mrs. Lott, Mrs. Bear, Mrs. Furworth, Mrs. Falzerano for a great day of professional learning that we had last Friday, along with Dr. Aaron Murphy. It was a great day that we got a chance to really put in a lot of application in terms of project-based learning, challenge-based learning, and what we would call student inquiry. So thank you for all of your hard work and preparation. It was a great day of learning. And finally, tomorrow we will be sharing with our faculty and staff at the elementary school and parents and guardians a plan for interim principal leadership during the departure of Mr. Hamilton on his last day of September 20th. So that correspondence will be going out tomorrow. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into resignations, leave transfers, and employment. So that's a good segue in as I look at the agenda for September. Under resignations, I have Mr. Hamilton from the position of elementary principal. It will be on September 20th, 2024. We also, unfortunately, have Sarap Sengaz from the position of math teacher at the high school. Mrs. Sengaz is going to go teach her passion, which is physics. And she's done a fabulous job for us. We wish her all the best as she continues in her educational career. Under employment, we have Mrs. Rachel Nguyen from Duncannon for the position of health room technician. She's an LPN, and she's going to be starting with us on September 7th, I believe. And change of status, we have two changes of status, Justina Blood and Steve Shermer, as they continue with their education and continue with the movements associated under the collective bargaining agreement. Substitute professional staff, we have Ms. Christine Garbrick coming back to join us as a substitute teacher, and we absolutely welcome her back in any form, capacity, and as many days as she could provide us, so we're excited about that. Induction support teachers, in order for an LPN to operate, they have to operate under a CSN's operation and license, and we have two LPNs we're fortunate to have, and we have Mrs. Battisti and Mrs. Noss, who are going to be mentors for Mrs. Nguyen and also for Mrs. Black. Some co-curricular activities, we have science fair coordinator, Mrs. Rebecca Paul, 11th grade advisor, Mrs. Lynn Reeder, art club advisor, Mrs. Tracy Hunter, Computer Club Advisor, Mr. Donald Albin, Spring Musical Assignments of Costume Advisor, Mrs. Kendall Wilt, and Secondary Vocal Music Director, Maria Mauser. And we also are looking at some Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Stephanie Palguerrero for the middle school, and she's going to be paid through the PCCD Mental Health Grant for this school year. And that rounds out resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment. And I'll pause to see if there's any questions. Hearing none, I'll fast forward into agenda items. Under agenda items, we have a motion to approve Richards Energy to provide managed services agreement for our electricity. As we talked about for several different meetings, we are in a need, as in December, our current agreement runs out. It was a very good agreement that Richards Energy brokered for us before, and we'd like them to continue to be our energy broker, to look and maintain and seek what's in the best interest of us, working and looking at the trends associated with PJM, peaks, and all of that energy information that comes forward, and serve as our energy broker to look for the best deal for us as a school district. We've been with them currently for 18 years. We have a motion to approve curriculum maps in the following subjects, so I'm excited about this. Elementary science K-4. Lots of hard work went into that. Lots of work. Spanish 1 and through Spanish 5, and family consumer science, child development, culinary arts, and world cultures. under the Family Consumer Science. So they're in a shared folder. Please take a look, and we're seeking your approval, board approval on those curriculum maps. We're looking at a motion to add Sharon Stein as an approved Aurora van driver, and motion for first read of policy 137.1, and a second read on travel reimbursement 626.1, 236.1, and as well as additional policies that we reviewed this evening will also be for first read. The possibility of a discipline committee recommendation and 2 field trips. The first one is an an AP United States history trip to Boston, Massachusetts from March 6th to March 9th. They're going to travel to Boston's historical sites, the USS Constitution. They're going to climb Bunker Hill, visit the museum, tour Old North Church, reenact Paul Revere and see his house, and the Salem Witch Memorial Garden and Museum. We also have the Spanish National Honor Society. We'll take a trip to Glen Echo, Maryland on October the 1st. It's a one-day trip, and they plan to visit the aquarium and attend the Latino Heritage Festival as part of the Hispanic American Month celebration. And 1 school day will be missed for that trip. We have some disposition of items under the elementary school as we continue to make sure that we're not preserving items that are no longer have any value or are no longer in use. Any question on agenda items? All right, hearing none, we're going to go and stay with me here for review of finances. Certainly excited when we have our assistant to the super for finance starting. That way you don't have to hear me 3 times in a row. You'll be able to hear her. But the first, I do want to state in these 2 reports that you see, you're going to see a lot of zeros under original budget and current budget. And the reason is we are finishing right now our rollover for 23-24. And then those numbers will be earmarked into, as well as the current 24-25 budget, will be placed into our computer software. So right now, those numbers have not been rolled over. We're working with our auditors to do so, and those numbers will be rolled over soon. So you get a chance to see those 2 columns. But you get to see here as well under General Fund 10, which is the revenue and the collection of revenue, as well as where we are with encumbrances and current balances with our current expenses at this particular point. It does appear we are running normal in terms of our business operations at this particular point. And I'd like to give a shout out to our business office right now, in particular, Mrs. Wisen and especially Mrs. Hannah Welter. Hannah started this year collecting some taxes for locally, just for New Buffalo, but due to an unexpectedness of Penn Township, she's now volunteered or vol-selected and began to collect taxes for Penn Township right now for our school district. So that's a really Herculean task, one that she's done a really good job for. And it's one that we are excited to be able to turn back over to Penn Township once they appoint a permanent tax collector.
Help me out with this stuff.
Sure, I'll try.
Just what is the bottom line of where we're at right now at the end of August? You said we're on course. Like, what is? Could you have a number of where we are in terms of our deficit is going to be?
Oh, you mean in terms of the 23-24 school year? There are still.
Or is this already starting 24-25?
Yeah, these 2 reports are 24-25. I will be able to hopefully get you some unofficial numbers. We've been working very closely with our auditors. Of course, we want to get the audit completed prior to when we had it completed last time, and they've been working very hard on it. And our business office team has been pulling a lot of documents to keep that momentum going. I'm hesitant to give you a number because there are still some outstandings that need to kind of be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. All right. Super excited. A fun way to start, certainly our caucus meeting, and a great way to start the 24-25 school year. Then what better way than to announce an outstanding achievement by the elementary school, which is an outstanding achievement for our entire school district. So with me, I'm going to actually introduce Mrs. Matash for all of her hard work, Ms. Snyder, as well as Mrs. Walsman in the elementary school. And then we're going to introduce our outstanding team that's here and begin to showcase some of the work that went in certainly to being and applying. And I think it's important to note that it's just not automatic. You don't just apply for Apple Distinguished School and get it. It's very tedious. There's quite the regiment when it comes to looking at who qualifies and who doesn't. It's really a really thorough rubric that they look for. And they use some criteria such as, and does your school inspire is the category they look at. Does the school inspire students to lead, grow, and thrive in a dynamic world? Does the school allow for imagination? The school empowers students to discover new possibilities and solutions? And does the school as a whole make an impact? Are we committed to leaving the world a better place than what we found it? And then we have to do that in a very detailed and very quick and very powerful video that it's able to demonstrate if that's done, as well as a full testament of the work that we've done. So I don't know if I did a good job of explaining it, but certainly I'm excited about the designation and excited about the work. And just like anything else, the power isn't necessarily in having the accolade, it's in the process. And these three have done an outstanding job, as well as the overall committee that's worked on this. And really, it's a testament to the teachers and the students being able to apply and think about teaching and learning differently. And congratulations. I think it's warranted at the beginning. Just a complete round of applause. And now I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Mrs. Matash.
Dr. Fox, you did a great job of introducing it. I really have not too much more to say. I do think one thing we should note, it's not just about using technology in the classroom. They look at everything from the community impact of our students and staff, not just using technology, but it's having those forward-thinking leaders in their community, like Dr. Fox said, to inspire, imagine, and impact teaching and learning. And our three teachers from the elementary school were an integral part of the planning committee for the video that we are going to see. Ms. Bear, Mrs. Fruworth, Mr. Brown, along with Mrs. Waldsman and Mr. Hamilton, and Ms. Fisher, who's no longer with the district, was part of it too, but I do think it's important to give her accolades as well. So we're going to watch the video. If you have any questions, again, great job to all the staff at the elementary school. It takes really a team effort.
At Susquenita Elementary School, our Blackhawks thrive through interactive experiences that ignite curiosity, encourage exploration, and empower them to develop foundational skills essential for their academic journey.
When we think of inspiration, we envision a community that thrives on a shared vision. We are dedicated to promoting a passion for learning through rigorous academics, critical thinking, differentiation, and social awareness. We believe that a high-quality elementary school provides a safe, supportive environment in which all students meet high expectations academically, socially, and emotionally.
A visionary elementary school leader inspires both educators and students to reach their fullest potential. Students participate in programs such as Student Council, morning announcements, and Little Hawks News to develop leadership skills in ways that encourage responsibility and fun. With the use of technology, students and teachers have many opportunities to become empowered digital citizens and creative innovators.
I really like blue cards because whatever you learn in class, you can just practice. So as you get older and you go up grades, you can always remember what you've learned from like kindergarten all the way up to 3rd grade.
Their creativity is so high at this age, it's important to let them use it and find ways that they want to solve a problem rather than me telling them how they should solve their problem. So to me, collaboration and creativity that drives every lesson that we use.
Our school is dedicated to fostering a culture to enhance well-being, spark curiosity, and unite individuals. STEAM Night, Literacy Night, STEAM Camp, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and our pre-K early bird program are just a few examples of how we build a positive culture at our school and with our community.
Our school is committed to using research to inform our decisions, such as the Apple Staff Survey, iReady, Acadience, and Reflex data points. Programs such as Swiss and the SRSS rating scale are used to influence our instructional practices and support our ongoing commitment to our students' social emotional needs. We showcase our positive impact through our school's Facebook page, newsletters, and research findings. This demonstrates that research and success go hand in hand, reflecting our commitment to excellence in education.
At Susquenita Elementary, we take pride in being a one-to-one school with iPads. This not only allows all students to have access to a variety of exceptional, educational, and assistive technology programs that foster creativity and critical thinking, but also provides opportunities for teachers to differentiate and enhance learning with technology. We cultivate a supportive learning environment through our PBIS program, Title I services, Blackhawk Backpack program, and ESL supports. We partner with families to organize events such as the Family Multicultural Night that celebrate diversity and promote cross-cultural understanding.
Wow! Learn. Inspire.
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
So thank you, Mrs. Walsman, Mrs. Bear, Mrs. Fruworth, and Mr. Brown. They're the voices as well as the creativity behind the video. Thank you for really that challenge of putting together a short video and finding out what fits and what doesn't. And I'm sure, just like when we work on curriculum, it's what needs to be cut, kept, and created in order to be able to really do that soundbite. And it's really good practice for our students, right? You have an elevator speech, you have 15 seconds to showcase what this is. It takes a lot to try to get it down into that amount of time to still be able to send the message that you want to send. So outstanding job, and thank you. Questions for them on the process, the application, any of the grit that went into this, because it certainly is a process.
Yeah, it was definitely a process. It was a lot of fun, though. We wanted to thank the teachers for letting us push into their classrooms and getting pictures and videos and having kids come out and do interviews. That was probably the best part, I think, because some of the responses were hilarious. Yeah, everything went really well, and we appreciated everybody's help with this. We also wanted to thank Justina Blood. She was also on the video. She let us interview her, and Nicole Hall as well. We had interviewed her, and she's no longer here at the district, but we wanted to at least give a shout out to her as well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'm normally not shy. How you doing? My name is Dirk Brown. I was the name that you saw up there. Yes, I'm a first grade teacher. This is real. This is not color. I learned a lot through this process. I was asked to be on this committee. I am the least literate when it comes to technology, and I had a great experience thanks to the committee, thanks to these fine young ladies right beside me. What you saw up there was a lot of their input at the end after we went through and we wrote scripts. We did interview students. The last piece that you saw at the end of the 3 individual students that were holding up their iPads, they actually did the design on their iPads that you see. They were very excited to do it. And it was just a great process for all of us to go through. We're all very proud to get the distinguished that we did. I'm very proud to be a part of that. And it's something that I hope the district cherishes as much as what we did putting it together. It was quite an honor, I have to say. And thank you for allowing us to come tonight and talk a little bit about it.
I wanted to say thank you for saying you're not the most technologically literate, but because this is about technology, yes, but it's about you being creative and you being innovative and thoughtful and identifying with children and making relationships and knowing what works. So I know it's Apple, but none of that would exist. I just broke this. I'm not literate in anything, but like it's all about our staff and about, I was talking to someone when we were talking about apples and in another district, and she was like, it's not the device that makes me a good teacher, it's who I am as a teacher. And so having said everything, although I appreciate all of that, but I don't want it to go unrecognized. It's because of you all as a staff and your innovation and your creativity and your hard work and your love for kids. And we appreciate that, and we know that that is first and foremost the most important. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think also along with that, having a staff and teachers that are open to trying new things with and without technology makes it easier to create something like that, because when we asked for evidence of learning and we said put the photos that you have, everything in the drive, when I say thousands of photos and that we had to go through, they made it really hard for us to narrow down to capturing all three of those things in a 3-minute video. So what you don't see is just even more than, and we shoved as much as we could into that video, but having a staff and teachers that are open to exploring and trying new things is a benefit, to our school, and made it our job easier with the content that we had, but harder to choose what actually went into the video.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one other thing. Like, a lot of times we think of education, we think of math, science, social studies, but we know what we want our future graduates. We just did Portrait of a Graduate. What we want our future graduates to do is exactly what you were displaying: to work together, to problem solve, to take initiative, to collaborate, to exist in society where they're a part of realizing others and thinking and problem solving. And not that I'm anti-reading and writing and math, but you're using the tools that you've been given to cause them to be thinkers, which is fantastic. Thank you.
And I'm excited to hear somebody else in a video talk as fast as I do normally. So it's exciting. So moving right along with our agenda, I'm excited to welcome from Pannoni, Mr. Greg Rogalski. He's a professional engineer, regional vice president, and JT Groppensberger, also from Pannoni Engineering. At the last board meeting, thankfully, and I'm appreciative, you've authorized a proposal for a multi-phase study to help us, certainly as a board, as a team of 10, and as a school district, to move forward with some decision-making that we have in the future. And certainly working in cooperation and in tandem with Pannoni will give us the data analytics and information in order to be able to continue to make those important and informed decisions. Greg?
Thank you, Dr. Fox. Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Rogalski. As Dr. Fox mentioned, I'm a regional vice president with Pannoni Associates. I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of who we are and then also introduce JT Groppensberg, who's going to really be the project manager for this particular endeavor here at Susquenita School District. We're a consulting engineering firm, so we're not here to sell you anything other than our brains. Our goal is to be partners with you, to be able to facilitate any kind of study, planning exercise, whatever you may need. So we're looking for direction in a lot of cases from the board in terms of what your specific needs are for what we're proposing to do. And we want to meet those goals as we move through this process. We have about 1,400 people. We're headquartered in Philadelphia. We have all of the engineering sub-disciplines under our roof. However, in this particular case, we're engaging several sub-consultants to come in that have specific expertise in the areas that we want to evaluate, which JT will talk about in a minute. We have about 40 offices up and down the East Coast, and as I mentioned before, the goal of the entire package is to really give you what you want or need. So we're here to listen. We just wanted to come in and say today, we just kicked off this project a couple of days ago with Dr. Fox and the crew. We're going to be in, taking a look at your building systems and some other things in the coming months, providing some recommendations. But we're here to answer questions. So certainly if you have any, we want to be able to get the answers to that. A little background on myself. I'm really in the municipal world, site civil. That's my background, as well as water, wastewater. I represent Marysville Borough. Duncannon Borough is our municipal engineer. I live over in Susquenita Township, very close. Lived here for over 30 years. So I pole vaulted on the field across the street in 1994. So I have some connection. And I'll hand it over to JT here to introduce the project.
Good evening, everybody. JT Grauensberger. So Greg mentioned we're selling you our brains. My brain was developed right here in this building, alumni from '99. So I've been working with Pannoni since 2004. I run our environmental services across the Mid-Atlantic for the bugs and bunnies side of things, but also helping out with this side. So a lot of the work that I do is also building envelope systems with hazardous materials. So understanding the components that go into those investigations helps with this investigation. So like Greg said, we want to listen. We want to know where the issues are with the staff that are dealing with these issues every day. We're going to be able to find issues that they may not know about or that they constantly deal with and try to find the solutions for that. It's going to be the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, telecommunications, fire suppression, lighting, all across all three buildings and all the support systems of those buildings. We want to develop options that allow you to extend the service life of certain components that still are serviceable, but there may be some components that need to be replaced. We want to give you the options and to be able to weigh those costs and timing of different things. In addition to that, there's looking at citing the potential for a future combination high school, middle school, and possibly integration of solar into that as well. I know we talked at length previous meetings about solar and those kind of things, but this is not looking to be a 100% offset project like that. It is going to be how can we integrate solar potentially in future development, and is it a viable option? So what we're going to do, end of the month, you're going to see a couple people, including myself, that are going to walk around campus. We're going to be taking pictures, video, notes, just talking to people, looking at building schematics, and really putting a comprehensive plan together of what it is that you can do with these facilities, and how do we extend those and bring facilities in that our students need to thrive. And Apple distinguished from elementary, get them all the way through. So
I think one of our marching orders that was very clear to at least me and our team was, number one, we're looking at right-size solar, not just solar. So a big difference between what you could fit and what you probably want to fit. And issue number two was, what can I do to adequately extend the service life of my existing facilities? We've got a lot of good boats here. We've got a couple of minor scrapes and cuts, if you will, that we want to kind of patch up and piece together so we get you another, whatever that may be, 20, 30, 40, 50, we don't know quite yet, years of service out of the existing facilities.
There's one question I did have. I'm assuming we're going into this with no preconceived ideas. Like, we haven't already decided we're going to build a new building, or we haven't decided we even want to do solar. It's just, if we did want to do solar, this is what it would look like. These are our options. If we did, are we going to how much would it cost to put on a new roof? What's left with our roof? Should we not? So we're not going into this with any preconceived ideas. We're going to build, we're going to put solar, but here are the options, and then we look at if we even want to do any of these things. What makes sense, correct?
So taking a step before that even, we're really evaluating what we got at this point in time. So we're going around taking a look at everything that's there and then providing you some of those life cycle estimates and kind of see where we're at in that. But you are correct. Really, we're going to say, hey, this is broken, or it's going to probably break in 5 years or something of that nature. We're not coming into it saying, we need to replace this with a different type of system or anything of that nature. That can be another discussion at some point in time once we figure out, kind of, hey, if this only has 3 years left, does it make sense? We already had a conversation about geothermal, and we didn't even start the project. So, we're kind of, putting our fingers in a little bit of everything to try to figure out what makes the most sense based on what you got here today and things like that. So there's a step one, and there'll be a step two and a step three at some point, you know what I mean? And then we'll get through this initial portion, and you can take that study and do with whatever you want to do, or we can take a look at a step two or a phase two or something like that, if desired.
Is there I'm sure there is. What is the plan as far as we're going to and maybe this is not appropriate to ask. We're going to look at this, and then by now we'll be able to give you this information, and then we're going to look at this, and by here we'll be able to give you this information. Or is it just in May you'll get a big giant report, or give us an idea if you can, if it's
Absolutely.
appropriate.
So this project will actually move fairly quickly. So right around the end of September, we're going to come in and do our field view. We'll take a look at all of the things. We'll document a lot of issues in terms of videos and equipment sizing and type and all of those types of things. We're going to come back to this body with our team of experts, not just JT and I, but our subs, and sit down and say, hey, this is what we found. Okay, we found XYZ. HVAC unit is 10 years old, and we think it's going to last 15. You got 5 years left. And at least have a stopgap point where you guys can answer questions, ask questions that we can provide answers to in that final report. So we're not just going to hand you a draft and say, hey, we're done. We want to kind of be a partner in terms of working this process through and anticipate being back. And we talked about potentially being back, October maybe early, kind of maybe in the November timeframe to this same style of meeting to be able to have some initial findings and then see where we want to head from there. And if there's things, for example, we present this, combination school siting study and you hate it, we'll go back to the drawing board and we're going to get you something that you like. A lot of this comes down to there's certain constraints that we have to work around and work through. But at the end of the day, there is no 100% one right answer. There's certainly a number of right answers that we kind of mold into one, cohesive, acceptable answer, I guess is the right word. So.
And really looking at that middle school, high school combination, if you will, is a large building. So the idea really is to take an overlay of what our current existing land and where would a good site be, kind of allows us to preserve that space for any potential future development in the next 20, 30, or long after I'm in Florida somewhere. So a long time thereafter. It helps preserve that space for future use. Kind of takes a look at what that might be and what the size may be and capacity of that. What I'm excited about is to have, and I'm sure I can speak for Scott as well, having a partnership with an engineering firm. And we're going to run into issues along the way too that we want to be able to have, much like we have with the solicitor, and a working relationship that we could pick up the phone and say, hey, we need some help, whether that be in water, whether that be in sewer overflow or a combined sewer overflow, any of those, stormwater, any of those things that come up along the way that certainly Mr. Howell and I together are dangerous, but not enough to fully have the words PE be after our names to make any qualified and educated decisions.
What you just said implied to me that we've already decided we were going to build a middle school, high school combo, which confuses me a little bit. I don't even know where that started, and you kind of just started that sentence about doing that. That's where I get a little confused, even where that came from.
So let me take about 6 months back. We had a discussion at some point about what would it look like as we began discussing a long-term facilities plan. And in that term was discussed, and I can't remember how it came up, what that would look like if we built new. What would the size and capacity look like? And we said, okay, well, if we did that, it would be a sharing of HVAC systems, a sharing of gyms. It'd be a sharing of cafeteria. So you could combine like they do in some instances in middle school, high school. That has not been determined that that's a need at all. That's not determined if that's the building of need at all. That would be a large building. That would be a nice footprint to look at an overlay of where that might be. So it would be a very large building and would be a large enough building that we would be able to preserve enough land for future of any buildings if ever needed. Because at some point, we will need one. Whether that be 20 years, whether that be 10 years, whether that be 8 years or 5 years, I don't know. But that will help to plan for the future.
Well, I guess that was my question about preconceived ideas. I don't know if at some point, maybe the skeletons of our current structures are good enough that we just continue with our current buildings and update them so that 30 years ago, we're still fine with these 3 buildings. I don't know if at some point we will need to build another building. I mean, I guess that's where, I think that's the whole point of what we're doing here is to decide, hey, your buildings are in great shape, no need to build new, but got to put on a new roof, got to do whatever. So that we're not in any way thinking at some point we're going to build, it's a possibility we may not need to, correct? Or
Oh, 100%. That would be wonderful. But at some point, sometime, somewhere, and maybe never, but there's a life expectancy of everything. Where this also came out of was our discussion when we had a robust multiple meetings and special meetings to talk about solar. One of the things we didn't want to do was place solar in every crevice and crack and area and piece of inch of land throughout our district. The second thing we wanted to be mindful of is where we place solar, we didn't want in 20 years to make a regret of placing it there and all of a sudden, wait a minute, we have infrastructure needs, we've got to build a new building, what do we do when it already has a solar footprint? Now we're expending additional costs to remove that array and have to build a building. So it kind of came out of long-term planning is what we discussed of where it is. And not necessarily what a design of a new building will look like. None of that. Where's an issue of a land and what that could look like so we can begin to preserve a piece of property that we may or may not need.
And I think the reservation of that space is looked at more like we're not going to put stuff there now in order to preserve is probably a strong word, but be able to whatever the next project is, whether it be this, a field, whatever it is, let's not try to put it in a space where there's only a few couple spaces that are going to work. Honestly, you know what I mean? Like I can tell you that right now. So let's figure out what the best one of those, maybe 3 are, and then we at least know. So.
Will your study, after you evaluate the 3 buildings, recommend that time frame on a potential building? And will it be only limited to it being a junior, senior high school, but maybe you find, hey, the bones of the high school and the elementary school are great. It's your middle school that's really a hang up here. That would be like, I think that's maybe Mike's point has it been decided that it'll be, if you build, it's going to be a junior, senior, or can it be left open to?
I think we might be jumping into the combined building. We heard that, and that piqued everybody's interest. I think the real goal is step 1, hey, what's going on with the existing? Yeah. Step 2 is, okay, as I mentioned, the next project may go here. Let's not put it in a spot where we know that something else could go in the future. Whatever that
is.
Square box may be.
Okay.
That could be elementary. Like I said, it could be a field. It could be all kinds of different things that ultimately go there. And hopefully for everybody here, that's a 50-year thing. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
Can you get 50 years out of the existing building now? I don't know if you're going to get 50 years out of it, but I think, just from walking around, you can probably get 20 for sure. So it's one of those situations where as we look into each individual component, maybe not so much the bones, but the pieces that break, which, they're all over the place. We may find that you have a lot of broken pieces you don't even know about right now. So, there may be a hefty expense just to get yourself to a point that you can then, get yourself another 20, 30 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Just having been on this board for the last 2 years or so, we've heard we need to possibly build a new elementary school. And then we've heard we need to build a new combination high school, middle school. And we spent $1 million on some property. And then we heard we need to invest solar and put solar on every nook and cranny of the property we possibly can. Not to mention, a large quantity of our property has geothermal wells under it and our playing fields. So I'm hoping we can just move forward, forget about all of that, and just start over with people who are coming in from the outside looking. Forget all of those things. Don't mention any of them ever again. Let's see, what do we have? Where do we go? Because we've heard all of that and we've heard from organizations that had invested interest in getting us to do what they wanted us to do. And now I understand you're entirely independent. All you're going to do is look it up and say, here's what we have. So I want us to just be very clear, forgetting about everything else. where are we? You know, and so that's, that's where we are, correct?
That's kind of why I led off that way. I mean, of course, I know the history. JT's filled me in.
Right.
You know, we kind of know what's going on here. You know, we don't benefit from any of you putting this stuff in. Obviously, you know, our fees, we benefit, but we don't get a direct, you know, kind of correlation in that particular instance.
And some of us, all of us, have invested a lot of time and emotions and everything in all these conversations that, in my mind, were for naught, sort of. You know, so I like the idea of just beginning all over. So, and I think that's where we are.
And frankly, JT is a taxpayer, so you get an extra check and balance, at least even on our own nutso ideas that we come up with. You know what I mean? To say, hey, look, like these are things that we think would work, but at the end of the day, you know, what's the community want to? You know,
right.
Kind of the pulse of the community. We don't want to come in here and tell you what to do. That's also a strong point I wanted to make was, you know, we want to have this conversation and don't be afraid to ask the questions because that generates more interest in our brains to say, hey, what if we look at something else? So we're here.
We want to extend the life of the existing boxes. And then if you need another box, where could you put that box that you don't have issues in the future if you do some minor projects? Because like Dr. Fox said, we don't want to put something in and have to rip it out 5 years later. So, you know, the size of that box, what's in that box, it may not be known right now. We can tell you that you have a box of this size that could accommodate X, could go here. If it needs to be bigger, you need more space. If not, you could go smaller. You could go vertical, depending on what you're allowed to do based on ordinances. If you can integrate solar, great. Here's potentially what you could get. If you want to do that, great. If you don't, you don't.
And in the meantime, there are upgrades to our current facilities that like our, you know, our musical productions and the need for it to redo, like a place for the kids to change clothes, whatever. We don't want to invest any money in any of that if we're going to be doing something. So we can't really move forward till we know some of these. So we're kind of waiting on all of that. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And as some of the potential upgrades or redos that we're going to be looking at, there could be some accommodations for such things like that of, you know, with some minor wall movement, we could maximize the space that we have and utilize it to extend the education value that the students are receiving within the footprint of the building as it is now.
Assuming we're not building a new building in 3 years. So, you know, that's, yeah.
I'm going to give you a box. What you do with that box, you do with that box.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Appreciate your
Leanne,
time.
Deb Calhoun says you owe her lunch.
All right, everyone. Well, we are going to spend just a little bit of time talking about some curriculum-related items and some preliminary testing data for the Keystone exams, and then I'm going to go in to talk a little bit about the comprehensive planning process for the district that we're going to be entering into this school year. So if you recall, last month we spent a little time looking at some preliminary PSSA results, and we talked a little bit about each building, kind of what we're doing to really work with our curriculum, our teachers and their instruction, just different things that we're putting into place at the buildings to help us with those scores. So wanted to share some preliminary Keystone data, and I think the first one we have up is for our middle school, which we know we have Algebra 1 testers at that building. And Mr. Ward, Mr. Funk, please feel free to jump in anytime if you think of anything, but just to kind of talk a little bit about where we are with this. And I tried to do a comparison just like last month with spring 23 to spring of 24. So even though our testers, obviously our numbers are a little bit different, and our mean scaled score kind of went up definitely, but we're really excited just to take a look at some of those percentages and the number of students we have now scoring proficient at the middle school versus the year prior. I know advanced looks like it stayed pretty steady, but we're really excited that we've moved a lot of those testers into that proficient range. And we did have like I said, a larger number of testers this year, both in 7th and 8th grade taking Algebra 1. So it was definitely a process to kind of work with our curriculum. We're still working through that process up through the high school, but we're really excited just with some of those results that we're seeing and working with that teacher at the middle school.
I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight.
You can talk as much
Do
as
we
you
do
want.
like I think it's called an Orleans Hannah or whatever, like a prognosticator, predictor that they take to see whether they're ready for Algebra 1? Do we do that in the middle school?
We have some protocols that we look at and take a look at a lot of different data points. It's not the Orleans Hannah, but we have some other things that we look at. So there is a protocol, and I know that was definitely a leap for us this year, I think, to add a little bit more of students into those courses than what we were used to seeing. So again, we were excited to see some growth there, and just to hope to continue that work with that teacher in that course. And really it's that trying to have that alignment with what we're seeing at the middle school, because that course is the same. Algebra 1 is the same across the district, no matter what grade that you teach it. But we know, as I'll show you with some of the high school scores, we have some different challenges at that building. So there's some things we're working on.
Thank you.
And just to take a look at the Algebra 1 for the high school, definitely still concerning. A little bit of increase and some things that we've been working on. But I know Mr. Funk has said this several times, and we even talked about it last month when we presented the TSI plan to you for approval. Really, a lot of the things that we're working on in that TSI plan are to address some of our concerns with our keystone tested subjects. So again, it's that, diagnostic testing, really working with the departmental leads just to make sure we're looking at instruction, looking at data, trying to make those decisions for the classroom. But we definitely have seen over the last several years consistency in instruction, and I think that's definitely coming forward. We've had several teacher changes in that course, so it is something, to take into consideration.
Just for reference, 1,500 is the cutoff score to become proficient. When we look back at the middle school, I know Mr. Ward and Mr. Black have done a good job of looking at individual scores, and it wasn't anything to see 1490s, 1498, 1497, which really, when you look at it, is it's frustrating to see that score because it's very close and it falls under the basic category. We see some of those scores as well that are right in there, and you look at some of the open-ended responses is where you get some of the value points when we look at. So those are some strategies that we're going to be using to work with our students and work with our teachers, as well as the generalized academic vocabulary. Students need to know what that academic vocabulary is, and we talked about that a little bit today as well. To know that academic vocabulary is to be able to answer those questions. And those questions are not just rote memorization questions of sequence of order of operations. These are high-level depth of knowledge questions that fall within their, when we look at Webb's depth of knowledge, they're 3 and 4 level-based questions that are multi-step questions in order to be able to have the test rigor to be able, or the test grit to be able to answer those questions, and then also the patience associated with being able to show all the work necessary and work through those. So those are the things that we need to do within the class to prepare our students better for this end of the course assessment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to note, by having middle school kids take the Algebra 1 Keystones, we are, for lack of another way of saying it, removing the best and brightest kids from taking Algebra 1 at the high school. So this is the high school, these are the high school scores, taking out the best and brightest kids because they all took it in middle school. Mm-hmm. So you've already taken out, these are the scores of the kids without the higher level kids. Mm-hmm. They've already taken it. So I think that's fair. Having said that, this is pretty atrocious to have only 5% kids proficient. It's better than 0 the year before, but there still has to be, I mean, and I know you're doing this to district, we are doing this to district, but to look at 95% not being advanced or proficient, which is better than 100% before, has to be a deep, deep dive to figure what are we doing there? And I know we've changed it. We did have Algebra 1A and Algebra 1B, and then we did Algebra 1, which was a period and a half all year long, you know, and now we're going to 1 period long Algebra 1, I guess, thinking that, I don't know, but obviously we're looking at that. But this is, I mean, it's obviously not good. But in all fairness to the high school, unlike English or biology, we've taken the best and brightest off the top, which, you know, I want to point that out.
Yeah, and I will also take these 82 students and their ability to show and demonstrate their knowledge in different ways is probably much better than a bubble assessment that you put a booklet in front of them for multiple hours and say, please. But if I were to say, I need you to go ahead and tell me that angle and go ahead and craft or weld together A, B, C, and D, and making sure that that angle is an acute angle, and they would be able to do that. And that application piece to me is so much more beneficial than just what it is in a standardized test. There's going to be a place for standardized tests everywhere. There is. We've all do them in some way, shape, and capacity. But life is not a standardized assessment. It's an application piece. And that's why I get excited when we talked about Project Lead the Way, Algebra 1, because it's about taking those concepts that are unique. And we know algebra is the foundation, right, for any mathematics. But you take those concepts and you can apply those into the sciences. You apply those into practical and applicable ways. And when it's applied, it's meaningful learning. But yeah, I will take some of those students at any day and any work. You see that, and you see them writing on, you know, inside of our tech ed classes, writing on wood and doing and breaking down all of those expressions, looking at CAD and being able to draw and do those. It's just a different application of it. And sometimes sitting in front of a test, I'm guilty of that. You gave me a standardized test right now, you would laugh at my results. You absolutely would. And I will be the first, and my parents are probably listening right now, and they're probably nodding. Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. But I understand. That's the metric in which we're measured on. And that's the metric in which we will continue to do better on. But that's not the only metric.
I hear you, and I hear what Mike's saying too, but I only take that for some of that, because the reality is some of the kids that are taking that in algebra in middle school, yes, they are kids that are more ready for algebra in 8th grade than other kids. But I would argue that when you get to 9th grade, it's not like all of those kids in 9th grade that are taking algebra are not bright enough to get a keystone.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
You know what I mean? And to this number, right?
But when you're looking at percentages like that, and you're taking the kids who are taking algebra in middle school are more advanced in math. And when you're looking at percentages in 9th grade, you're taking out the kids who are more proficient in math. You're taking them out of the percentages.
So why were they so bad in middle school in 2023?
Great question.
I mean, if they were the best and brightest.
Well, that's
I mean, so that there I think
but
is.
they are, aren't they? They
Well,
are. I mean, we all know
there
that.
there are kids that were able in the past, honestly, able to take an Orleans Hannah test that said you're ready to do it and go, right? And so they may just be in some ways better at taking tests.
That's only part of it. They look at, you know, we've had kids in the middle school. They look at their grades in math. They look at, it's more than just the prognosticator of the test, but they look at their grades in math, and if they've had straight A's, whether they did well on that test or not, maybe they should go to algebra. But the kids who did, those are the kids in middle school who are taking it, the kids who did very well in 6th and 7th grade math.
What maybe you said this already, Krista, but what change happened in the middle school that you felt caused the change?
I think there's probably a few factors. You talk a little bit about, you know, that selection of which students are, we looked at that protocol and really analyzed that group and who was going to be put into those courses. We worked on curriculum, not done by any means because we're still working on that piece. Different instructor for the entire year. There's just a lot of different factors that went into that, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking though, I know you guys are already looking at that. That to me seems to be more of an issue than just the fact that the accelerated kids were removed from the mix. Because if you combine them both together, we still have overall.
So one thing that is
Interesting
very, very difficult to sometimes measure is the enthusiasm and dedication of a student taking the assessment. That is difficult to quantify because that's a qualitative measure. When I'm sitting in an assessment, the first question I would ask is, what does this mean to me? Second question is, why am I taking this? And third, when is lunch and how do I get out of this? Those are the questions I ask, because now with Act 158 and the pathways, it is not a requirement for graduation, and there's no more project, whatever they called those at one point, that we had to do in order to kind of work back through. There's different pathways, and I don't disagree. It should not be a hurdle or an obstacle or a barrier to have somebody towards graduation. Kids have enough barriers. This should not be one. So I'm happy about Act 158, although it's I shouldn't say that. It is, it gives alternative pathways. It becomes very tedious and tracking, but that's a story for another time. But I think students, again, demonstrate their learning in a multitude of different ways. How we can try to motivate students is going to be a really good question, because like everybody sometimes needs carrot or stick. How do you get somebody to put forth that effort to demonstrate the best that they can in that performance at that assessment in both modules on multiple days? And then even before that, we need to look at making sure that our kids come to school on a regular basis, which is even more essential, right? How do we make sure you've got to be in class, you've got to be in class to be able to hear, be a part of, and handle those examples that are being presented? So I think it's a multi-tiered, complex, not just one-size-fits-all solution.
And I totally agree with absolutely everything you said. The reality, though, is that is true for all of us, all the schools. You know, so I don't believe our teachers are any less competent. I don't believe our kids are any less bright. But last I checked, Greenwood was knocking it out of the park, and it's been a while. So I know I'm preaching to the choir. But you're right, it's what we're measured by. So I would be, and probably this is happening, checking with Greenwood. What are you doing? Because I don't believe their teachers are any better. I don't believe their kids are any smarter, and they're knocking these tests out of the park. What are you, and again, it's been a while since I've checked Greenwood, or whatever. There are other local schools that have the same challenges with attendance, the same challenges with motivation, that are doing better on these tests. So then the question is, and I'm preaching to the choir, and I'm sure that this is all being discussed, but that's why we're talking about this. Is like, what's your secret? Because and I'm not a big fan of these tests either, and I don't even know that they are valid and reliable measures, and I've always felt that way. Nevertheless, they are what we're being measured on. So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that we're not doing? Because I don't know necessarily that it's our kids or teaching, but there's some secret out there. So maybe we just reach out to some of those schools that are doing well so we could figure out what it is that we're not doing, because this obviously isn't okay. Not being negative, not meaning to be negative at all. I'm just saying it's a reality that we have to deal with.
There is no question we have work to do. And there is no question that it is not just a matter of throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks. And it's a matter of finding what fits and works for us on a basis, and making sure that, again, the curriculum is that work that's we've started needs to continue to occur, because what gets measured gets done, and gets done effectively. Just when we think we've got a plan also, we know fully well that I think it's in 2026 that the test is going to change yet again, and it's going to go to an online test format, at which time the questions are going to be a little different as well. More to come on that, where I think there's going to be a lot more drag and drop features, a little bit more in terms of that should be coming also, because they're also seeing that the turnaround time of assessment, how students test is different. So there are some things happening on the back end with the design of this test that's going to happen as well. But yeah, we've got some work to do. It's work that we talk about on a regular basis and plan on a regular basis. It's work that we know that it's not just you take 9th grade or 10th grade and then you work. It's kind of, it goes on the front end when it comes to working through a holistic 4, 5, 6, 7 in that continuum, and then going with Algebra 2 as well, and moving backwards in there also. So
pairing that with PVAS, pairing that with our PVAS data,
correct,
shows something. We got to do something. We got to
figure out something. Where are our kids? and where have we grown them, and where does that look like? And absolutely, 100%.
And this may not be something off the top of your head, but what was 2022 in the high school? Like, were they similar in terms of proficient and advanced? Because
I'd have to log in and look and see for you.
because those numbers are essentially zero for both years. So I just didn't remember them being like that before. Were they always like that?
I don't know, I can't answer that.
Okay.
But I know we have raw data we get now, and when they put everything together, like here's your algebra score, like kids as you, kids take it here, that always changes, so I can't say that.
Okay, that's fine.
No, you make a great point. When you see it on the Future Ready Index, you're going to be like,
It
wait,
is.
why does it say 20%? Well, it takes into account those who've been banked. So the 8th grade scores that have already been banked ahead of time get credit under that Future Ready Index. That's that future forward facing dashboard that's on there as well. And those who have retested get added into that element as well. So we're also looking at the retesting aspect of things also. How do we remediate, how do we supplement, and how do we retest students, and looking at the modules and giving students the best chance to be successful on this?
Yeah, and last year, if you recall from last month when we presented what we started doing, well, we've been doing it, but more in depth the regular meetings. And this year, we had the data team meetings. We're bringing back the CDT tests to provide that ongoing benchmark. While there's no correlation between CDT and Keystone scores, that'll give progress on the standardized items to the teachers to know where to target. So they're given 3 times this year. We're having monthly data meetings, and we got this data last week. I think it was Thursday or Friday, and the teams already are breaking down each subject, where to look at, and move. So we do take these serious because the next 2 subjects aren't much better compared to where they were pre-COVID, and that's not an excuse when I say that. When I say just in pre-Act 158. So we have a plan. I was shocked. I was pumped this year the way everything the teachers and students did last year. I was surprised with our preliminary scores, but
They take an incredible amount of pride in looking at these scores to the point where we don't want them to take it personally, but we also want those adjustments to be made and that differentiation to happen within the classroom. And certainly
we look
that
at
is
all
something.
aspects, not only just the data analysis this year and CDTs, but also we shift teachers around too that can make an impact. So we're hoping maybe keep 1 teacher that has been teaching, add a second one, the 2 of them pair up. Now algebra, it's a consistent thing. We had 3 teachers in the algebra classroom last year and this year. So there's been consistent, but that's not an excuse. I mean, we have work to do.
And it's just something with these Keystone exams. I'm not a fan. I'm going to just say from a personal level, one of my sons was advanced in mathematics early in elementary school and was recommended that he take algebra early in middle school. He didn't. But yet, after taking the Keystone multiple times, has yet to ever, well, he's not going to do it again, but has multiple times never gotten proficient on the Algebra 1 Keystone, having been advanced in math in early elementary and being asked to take Algebra 1 early in middle school. We chose not to, never once scored proficient on this algebra test after having taken it multiple times. So I don't know the answer. I don't know if there's some secret to schools that are doing well. If it's teaching to the test and this is what we're being scored on, what is it? So I'm not certainly saying it's our kids. I'm not saying it's our teachers. I'm not saying it's our administrators. I'm saying these scores are ridiculously low. We have to try to figure out why, because this is what we're being measured on. So I don't know what the magic is, but I guess we just keep, I guess we acknowledge it and keep looking.
Well, and I want to just make clear too that when I'm looking at it, I'm not looking at it as an indicator of a given teacher or anything like that too. I think of it more as just an indicator of just one piece of whatever, right? And the comparison between middle and high, like, is there something different happening there? Because I agree, I don't want our kids to be tested to death or repeatedly taking these tests when quite honestly, they don't matter for graduation. They don't. I mean, there are different pathways to get to graduate, right? Or we know plenty of kids, one of mine included, that would have never graduated because of these Keystone exams. So I don't want to like have all of a sudden remediation stuff for these tests that don't matter. And to your point, they may be teaching to the test. There is a skill set of knowing how to take the test. You know, I mean, that's why there's SAT classes and everything else. It's not how you know the information anymore, it's how you take the test. And I don't personally want that either. I don't want to be taught to a test. Like, I don't want our kids being taught to a test, I guess.
Extremely frustrating, because I hate these tests, and because I was a biology teacher, and the biology tests, it's all about vocabulary, it's whatever. And here we are, these Apple distinguished schools in all 3 buildings, and our teachers are doing all these amazing things, and we can't get more than 5% proficient on an Algebra 1 Keystone. Something's not right, you know, and I don't know what it is, and it could very well be the test, but I appreciate the transparency. I appreciate we're going over this. I appreciate we're having the conversations. Wouldn't mind us revisiting this several months down the road, talking about this is what we did, this is what we're looking at, because it's you know, we have to look at it, whatever it means. So thank you.
And I think showing you these scores, thank you for the transparency comment, because we want to keep you up to date. We're sharing you these scores. I want to come back in a few months after like the second CDT. This is what the teachers are seeing. This is what we're doing. And because we meet and share, you know, action plans all the time, you need to see that too. I mean, not that you're questioning the teachers, but you need to see what we're seeing as we go to prepare these students. So that's the plan. Scores are abysmal. I'm not happy. I'm proud of my teachers and students, but we're going to work on it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And next couple slides, we had literature on the next slide. See a little movement. Our last slide is the biology.
I think 2023, our biology scores were even lower.
Yes.
I mean, 2022. I know, in 2022, they were worse.
They were worse than 2023, so they were down.
Prior to that, they hadn't been bad.
And that's something we're looking into also. Sounds like an excuse, but don't take it as that. That biology, we were always in the blue. Well, I don't say always. We had a foot in the blue, foot in green, and
Across the district, kids.
yes,
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Science was always
Yeah.
strong.
and I'm just sharing that. I don't.
And
have
you've
a-
had some turnover in that that subject too, right? So, I mean, for years, you had the same teacher
Yes.
there that was, you know, for a long time, and that, I think, they're able to adjust as each year goes to know which one is the thing that they need to focus on. And when you have different teachers that are coming in, I think that would have to have an effect.
And I'm excited to see, and yeah, I do get excited over test scores and initiatives. One of the new teachers to the subject area this year, definitely not a new teacher in the district, one of the top science teachers in the district, is teaching the general classes, several sections of them. So I'm anxious to see her and the way she's working with the other biology teacher, what they're able to do this year.
In reality, I'm just going to say this. Kathy Becker was able to knock these tests out of the park. So, I mean, maybe it would behoove to set up a conversation with Kathy Becker. Kathy, what did you do? Because it's been 3 years since Kathy, and these scores have plummeted, and it's been 2 different teachers. I don't know what it was she did or how she did or whatever, but like it would even be worthy of the conversation. I'm sure you're thinking of all of those things, but something there. I mean, I don't. There's something.
So it's interesting because the test does change each year. I think you hit it on right out a home run when you said it's a vocabulary test.
It is.
We It is an academic vocabulary test to know those terms, very heavily into that. The second aspect, I think, to anything when it comes to these is, again, prior to Act 158, the consensus was you had to pass the test to graduate high school.
And just to reiterate that for someone who may not, on a biology test, for example, you may have a picture with a bunch of pine trees and a bunch of oak trees. And it would say, which is more abundant, the coniferous or deciduous trees? If they don't know what abundant means, they're going to get it wrong. They know what coniferous means and deciduous means, but they don't know what abundant is. And they can't ask the teacher, what does abundant mean? Because the teacher's not allowed to ask that question. And that's what I mean, and I think that's what you mean when we say vocabulary heavy. It's not measuring whether they know the difference between a coniferous and a deciduous tree. It's measuring whether they know what the word abundant means, which is neither here nor there, but that's, when we're talking about vocabulary, it's that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's reading through those paragraphs deep and trying to figure out what the nuisance words and the junk words are.
But
versus what
nevertheless, when Becker was here, we somehow did that. I don't know how. And again, it's what it is. But.
Out of curiosity, when were the Keystones given?
They're given in May, usually the first 2 weeks or the second. This past year is the second and third week of May.
And was there prior testing to the Keystones before that?
Classroom testing. For high school, it's basically in-class assessments, things like that, yes.
But you're exactly right. It is a tough time of the year. Now, granted, we don't select a window. The window's selected for us, and everybody has that same window. We're kind of, we have a little bit of flexibility as to when, but yes, it's tough, but everybody has that same playing field, so I can't really use that as a built-in reason, but it is a tough time of the year.
Just my own personal feedback is my kiddos, it seems like they had like back-to-back weeks, 3 weeks in a row of testing. I was wondering where the Keystones fell into those 2 other tests they took. Because after week 2, you're pretty checked out. So I was wondering if the Keystones came after those
Well, they
tests?
don't take those. They don't take those tests in the high school.
And I forget the name of those.
The PSSAs are not taken in the high school.
PSSAs, yeah.
They take PSSA after 8th grade.
Okay.
And they take the Keystones for algebra, biology, and English.
Yeah, because my
Now, the
one
only
kiddo-
kids that would have that kind of overabundance of it, though, would be the 8th graders.
And that's what
Because the 8th
I'm
graders are taking the Keystone Algebra, PSSAs in science, PSSAs in English, and the PSSA in math, which is kind of funny, because they're taking the case.
And they
Keystone
typically
Science.
don't do well on the
On
8th
the
grade
PSSA
PSSA
math,
because
right.
they're taking algebra in 8th grade and they're not taking the content that's on the 8th grade PSSA. It's all.
I was just looking for a variable to consider, and that was certainly at the timing of these tests, end of the year, the interest, and just something to consider.
It would be interesting, and you probably maybe do this, and I don't need to know. It would be interesting to look at these scores in biology or even the other classes and look at the academic versus general curriculum and how those students did. Because I would bet the academic kids don't do any better on these tests maybe than the general kids. Or maybe they do, or maybe they don't. And then what's that have to do with the difference between how the teacher is teaching academic versus general? Like how much are they getting an A in the class because they're doing all their homework, but they haven't passed a test all year, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure we're looking at all of that, but
Thank you all. Great points. So moving on, we are talking a little bit, it's exciting time. We are currently getting ready to start work on our district comprehensive plan, and this work typically happens every 3 school years in a district. So our next plan is due March 30th of 2025. So as you can tell, we're going to spend the next several months really working through this at the committee level, just trying to work our way through basically what is a PDE template that they give us to cover certain areas of what they want to see in your comprehensive plan. So really, I want to speak to the steering committee because that's kind of a call out as well for anyone if you're interested. But we definitely would love to have, thank you, some board members involved and, willing to help us with this work. I know, district administrators, building level administrators, parents, community members, everyone's welcome. But that we will start to kind of formulate over the next several weeks, and really kind of looking to start in October with our first meeting. I'm kind of in my head kind of toying around when we want to start that, simply because we haven't heard yet when we're going to get our Future Ready Index data back, but usually it is around October, and that is a huge part that they ask you to look at as you're doing your needs assessment for your comprehensive plan. So really it would, help us out a lot if we had that up-to-date information, because I really don't want to dive into something that's over a year old at that point. So that's what we're looking at, but I will have more information out about that timeline very soon. But yes, please let me know if you're interested in helping with that process, and we will have more information to share on that.
And I know I've done this a lot, but again, a shout out to Mrs. Snyder and to Dr. Fox. In the past, these things have taken place, and there was a list of people that were on the committees in which the committees never met. And it was sent in and produced and even had to be board approved, saying these are the meetings that happened and these were the people that were there, and nobody met, and it was done at a district office level without input. And we were told that these things happened and they didn't. And so it's happening now with Fidelity, and I appreciate even at the next week's meeting, we are approving curriculum plans. Which has not happened here. And I said to Dr. Fox, he's like, well, of course, this is what we're supposed to do. And for years we've talked about it, and for once we have things that are being done in our district with curriculum and planning and things that are actually being done with Fidelity. And I know I say it a lot, but I can't tell you how appreciative I am of just the importance of this happening. And I know the administrators feel the same way, because I'm sure they sat back seeing all this and not being able to do anything. So I just appreciate, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the leadership of the district office, Dr. Fox, and I just thank you. And even though the test scores may not be great, at least it's being shared with us and we're discussing it. And work is being done with Fidelity. Thank you. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you. It is exciting work when we look at our comprehensive plan, because it is the connection of dots. We think of some of the TSI plans that we've had, as well as some of the Title I plans that we have, our Portrait of a Graduate. So it's connecting all those dots of the work that has been done and connecting those dots into where is some of the direction. Now, there's some standardization that PDE has, that some questions we need to ask and some roadmaps and some things that we need to do. But like anything else, the power necessarily isn't in those particular boxes that you check or the information you put into this multi-phase document. It's in the conversations. Yeah. It's in the driving of the conversations that I go back to our POG. I get really inspired going back to the discussions of teaching and learning, the power of what we had of talking about what school is and what school can be, and using some of that work of Ted Dintersmith to look at where the future of school. That's what really, and kind of really begins to motivate me. And the future of school is not in a standardized test. It's not. The future of school is in students demonstrating and doing. It's no longer a spectator sport, and no longer is it something that it's just the disposing of knowledge. It's teaching how to think critically, applying strategically, and being able to ask questions and being able to take that information and to be able to pose it into your own thoughts and your own information. And yes, it does take a foundational information that needs to occur, and foundational information that needs to build on every level.
Yeah, I love the word that you use with power, because really this document is as powerful as we make it, and it's our roadmap, and it's really going to lead us, where we want to go and what we want to follow over the next several years. So I did want to just make sure I went over with you, to finish the presentation, just those different areas, as Dr. Fox said. It really is a roadmap that PDE kind of leads us on that journey in the comprehensive planning tool, but there are different things that we have to look at as a group as we're really trying to work our way through and set goals, manageable goals, I like to say, simply because we want to make sure they're things that we can work on and follow through with. But we will take a look at a needs assessment, which will include multiple points of data that we're going to be able to look at as a team, and that's really going to help drive really looking at our strengths as a district, and strengths in certain subjects and areas, they make you break it down into that way as well. So really looking at strengths and weaknesses and allowing us to then set goals that are manageable, okay? You know, just like in our last comprehensive plan, we really had several manageable goals. You don't want to go so far, you know, to set. I always say 3 to 5 is very manageable, but if you go above that, it becomes very, very difficult to keep everything in check. So we're going to really look at working through that process, and then we actually get to create the action plans and the action steps that we're going to follow to get there. I like also the state, as we spoke about prior, this year, all districts are required to put into place a 2-year induction model for our new teachers needing that induction plan. But what we're going to have to do within the comprehensive planning tool is really kind of list that and submit that to the state and let them see what we're working on. But that also requires a different review committee that they're going to take a look at that and be able to work. There's certain people that need to be on that piece as well. So I'd really like to utilize the members of our current curriculum committee to be able to look at some of those key things to take to the overall committee, just to let you know where we are in that planning process. But it gives us a good chance to review through that as well. And then we'll look at the professional development that's needed, you know, to reach not only those goals, but we also know we have the things that we have to do as a district as well to put into that plan. So it's really having that balance and that mixture of those things. And also, the plan will allow us to look at student services and gifted education as well. So we have to have some assurances and go over and answer some different questions relating to those areas as well. So it really is a comprehensive plan for the district. It's going to cover a lot of different areas. But really, it does give us the ability to drive, you know, those and set those goals.
Sorry, I just can't
help.
He's ready to be on the
I
committee.
just can't help smiling because it's rare to hear anyone, except if they're supposed to be doing curriculum, to be like, I wrote it down. And then we get to create action plans. like I love that. You know, because it's not, and then we have to do this, and the state requires, and then we get to create action plans. I love that. That you should be doing this. I love that because it is exciting. It's what we do. You know, it's what it's all about.
And I feel like we've been working through the process with the buildings, as Dr. Fox said. We've had several Title I plans we do yearly. All of that is modeled on the same premise as the district comprehensive plan. So it really isn't anything new that we're going to be working through. It's just we get to set those parameters and, you know, get to follow through on that. So yeah, exciting time.
All right, at this time, we're going to open it up for public comment. Thank you. And we'll see if we have any no electronic comments. Any administrators? Anything? Have a great evening and look forward to seeing everybody